Good evening. This is the Guilford Board of Education. It is Tuesday, January 24th. This is the second of two public forums that the Board of Education is holding on the budget. So the Board of Education officially received the draft proposal budget for the academic year 2023-2024 from Dr. Freeman. And tonight is the second opportunity for the community to come to the board and provide comments, input, questions, requests for our consideration as we read over, mull over, discuss, and deliberate the draft proposal before us. I will note that the community also has the option, if they have been unable to attend either of these public forums, or in addition to attending, to reach out to any board member if you have something you'd like to share or a request you'd like to make, something you'd like us to take into consideration. All of our email addresses are up on the Guilford Public Schools website. I also want to note that interested parties can find the draft budget on the Guilford Public Schools website. You can also find Dr. Freeman's budget presentation, the presentation he gave to the Board of Education on this budget back on January 12th. And likewise, you can find a timeline of the budget process. I will briefly note that, again, tonight, the second public hearing, we do have a meeting scheduled for Monday, February 6th, for the Board of Education to vote on a final budget to put forth to the Board of Finance. We may also schedule a meeting, special meeting before that time, sometime next week, if we feel the need to give ourselves additional time for discussion. That meeting will be posted, and the public is certainly welcome to attend and listen. The next then date for the public that I want to put forth is that on March 7th, there will be then the public hearing on the budget in front of the Board of Finance, and at that time, both the Board of Education and the town budgets will be before the Board of Finance. So, just a couple of dates there. I want to now open up to public forum. Ask that anyone who wants to address the board come forward to the podium. We do ask that you give us your name and address for the minutes, and ask that you keep your comments within 4 minutes so that there's plenty of time for anyone else who would also like to speak to come forward. So now I just want to welcome anyone who wants to address the board to come on up.
I'll also keep time, so I'll give you a little wave when you get to 4 minutes, so you'll hear my little buzzer chime.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Chris Ward, 378 Willow Road, and I'm responsible for the booster club for the boys high school hockey team, and I'm also incredibly well plugged into the girls team, so we're going to talk a little about hockey tonight. As a reminder, over the last year or so, I've been in front of this group, and thank you for the audience you've given me to present some information. And for this current budget cycle, the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance agreed to provide some incremental funding. Small but meaningful and heartfelt to us. The funding is in place for this year, so hold that thought. I also want to point out, and this time I'm going to point to the boys hockey team. This is an on-ice moment. On December 20th, they had their Lake Placid moment. So we're about to graduate 10 seniors off that team, a big proportion of the team. And they play their most respected and intense rival twice a year. Out of respect for the intensity of that rivalry, they get 2 bites at the apple to try to beat that team. 10 of these guys are going to graduate without having beaten that team once. December 20th, they break through, Lake Placid moment, Mike Ruziona going nuts to win 6-5 over Daniel Hand High School. So we get the funding, and they win a big emotional game. Correlation? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there and saying thank you for everything that occurred there. So congrats to the boys.
Congrats.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome game, and clearly a memory of persistence that it does pay off. I want to step well beyond anything has to do with the scoreboard and talk about why we're really here. I'm going to share a photograph of you that I think captures it very, very well. Go one this way, and one to the audience. And I want you to look at the face that's on this photo. You're going to remember it for a while. Let me tell you the story of how we get to that photograph. So the student athlete in that photograph, dead center, is a current sophomore. She was invited to play, encouraged to play by a teammate, experienced hockey player. Please, you gotta play, you know, we're good friends, let's go play. She says, but hey, I don't know how to skate. I say, nonetheless, we're gonna get you to public skating, we're gonna figure this out. So she goes home, and you can imagine the conversation. She says, hey, I wanna play hockey. Now, there's a lot of experienced parents in this room. You know to fear and how to shoot down 3 questions you might get as a parent. Number 1 is, I want a pony. Number 2 is, I want to play the drums. And number 3 is most definitely, I want to play ice hockey. So you can imagine her going home and saying, I want to play hockey, and her parents like turning white. But nonetheless, this particular family is incredibly committed to athletics. I don't know of a family that is more committed than this particular family. So they said yes. They were going to roll the dice and say, the cost of equipment, the cost of ice time, busing all over the state, we're going to do all of that so she can chase hockey. She jumps in. Very little ice time, as you can imagine in games. Is almost sequestered at the far end of the ice so she doesn't gum up the practice for the more experienced players, right? She's bent ankled and blistered and figuring it all out. Returns sophomore year, is she going to play again? You bet. She's intrigued. There's a vision for herself that she has not yet realized, and she wants to figure that out. That photograph, 2 weeks ago, click, is the moment she scores her first high school goal. First goal in the sport, forget high school. Now, the goal is inconsequential. What do I mean by that? Late in the third period, there are 3 periods in hockey. So the game is 6-1, Grizzlies are winning this one, this thing is over. And normally when you score a goal in that situation, you're kind of sheepish and you're like, out of respect for your opponent, you don't make eye contact with your opponent, and you kind of do the lightest fist bump in all of sports history, just out of respect. But not then. The whole place went nuts. The whole place went nuts because everybody knew what that meant. Everybody knew that in that moment, when you look at that face, you see joy. You see relief. Oh my gosh, I've been working at this for a long time. You see this sense that persistence does pay off if given enough time. We do these things because they're hard. And you also sense this rising confidence that you only get through sports. Thank you. And you look at that and you go, you know, hey, yes, you just put knives on the bottom of your feet, hopped on a slippery sheet of ice, got out there, and you put a 3-inch vulcanized piece of rubber in the back of the net. What else can she do? Right? That's what we're here for. All right, that's the biggest win in sports. So your investment in us, that's the return on your money, is moments like that, building self-confidence in young people in a sport. All sports are hard, but in a sport that is particularly hard. That's what we're chasing here. So I want you to know that when your money comes to us, incremental money, should we receive it, we're looking to lower the access to the sport through economics, invite more people in, and do more of those moments, create more of those true Kodak moments. Is she an anomaly?
I'm so sorry, but we're past the 4 minutes, and you're welcome to come up after other people have a chance to talk, but we really do need you to try to wrap it up, please.
Just 10 seconds. I will pose 2 questions to the student athletes who are here. They couldn't be here last night. They had a game, and they were prepping for midterm exams, of course. But I do want you to know we value every dollar that you could possibly think about us. And as you deliberate, that's what we're looking to do, is increase access to the sport. All right? So other groups
you.
invited to go, and then I'd love to come back up and just ask 2 questions.
Okay,
Student athletes.
yep, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Please feel free to come up. Again, just give your name and address. And anybody else?
Hi, good evening. Ken Alberti, 100 Trailwood Drive. Here this evening. I couldn't make it last night, but I know a few folks were here last night to, I want to touch on a topic that was addressed last night. I have 3 students in Guilford Public Schools. One's a senior, one's in 8th grade, and one's in 4th grade. I'm also the current president of Guilford Youth Football and Cheerleading, and I know you heard from some of our friends about cheerleading last night, so I just wanted to come in today and express my support for what they shared last night. They've been doing, the folks who've been leading that program, I've seen it firsthand. I've been part of that. They've been doing a great job of building that program up from basically nothing when I started about 10 years ago to what it is today. So there's a lot of effort and dedication behind it. I know it's not part of the existing budget, but I know there was a request last night to maybe consider a coaching stipend to help bring that program back because it was once a program here at Guilford. And I think as a parent of 3 students and someone who's been involved in athletics in lots of different ways here in town, I would also just ask the board to consider, I know Dr. Freeman in one of the earlier meetings mentioned there were 4 coaching stipends that were requested. I know 1 made it through to the budget, and I'd like to ask the board to please consider funding all of those stipends. Athletics, the importance of athletics, it's really hard to measure. You just heard some of it. But I think as a whole, I don't know if there's another department or program in the school district that engages more students than the athletic department. And I would like to think that by continuing to fund those coaching stipends, for many of us, some of the most important mentors we had were coaches growing up, right? I'm sure many of us can reflect on that. So if there were requests for coaching stipends, I would hope the board would consider. I know Dr. Freeman said that's something that obviously the board can do. It was dwindled down. I'd love to see that come back in and fully fund for all the sports, not just for cheerleading or for tennis, but for all of them. So thank you for considering that and for considering our cheerleaders. Thanks.
Who else would like to come forward? Anybody else? Going once? No one else would like to come up? Sorry, I
Ward?
can't see him. Is he behind? Mr. Ward?
Mr.
Do you want to
Ward?
come, did you have something
I just
else?
have 2 questions for the student athletes, if we're good with that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead. I thought he was sitting behind your podium. I couldn't find him.
Yeah, I can see him.
That's who you want speaking for
All
your
right,
team.
so Chris Ward's still at 378, Will. I'm just, all right, so this one goes to our seniors. So seniors, it's, sands through the hourglass here, right? So time is passing you by. I want you to imagine your 25-year-old self and looking back at your time playing hockey at Guilford High School. What's going to be your big takeaway? What lesson? What'd you get out of that? So we'll just take 2 of you, please.
That was spontaneous.
I'm Mitchell Ward, and I'm at 378 Willow Road as well. Out of hockey, I've gotten no less than a quite literal family, tight-knit boys. I know that if I could ask anything of those guys, that they would do anything for me. In recent times, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, and out of the kindness of their heart, my teammates and their parents have put together a meal train for my mom and my family. So twice a week, 3 times a week, we get meals delivered to our house, fresh cooked from my teammates. And I just wanted to say thank you to them and thank you to you guys for funding that.
Thank you.
I'm Kaylee Rosa at 33 Woodside Road, and when I'm 25 looking back on this sport, I'll always remember the friendships that I've made because I started the sport as a freshman in high school, and I was obviously very nervous to play something that I've never had and as difficult as this sport is, and all of my friends have supported me, especially with the co-op that we've created this year. I've made some really good friends. So.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the bonus time here and overtime. And one last question for everybody, but it's essentially this. Look, last year we did 13 fundraisers in 12 months on the boys' side. None of us, we're not really thrilled about that, and least of all you. So we're looking to cut that back. So the question is this. In your newfound free time, how are you going to recruit 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th graders? How are we going to find more people like the young lady we saw in the photograph who made it onto the team? What's that pitch? Charlie. Thank you. Yep, just name and address.
Hi, I'm Gabe Mongelli, 100 Orcutt Drive. Mitchell highlighted it on it earlier, but the thing that I would definitely try and, to convince someone to join the sport is, if you look at this, we're here on a Wednesday night and we have, 10, 12 kids, and this is, just half the team, but just like the support network that's created, and it's a lot different than a lot of high school sports because we're not showing up to a turf every day for an hour and a half long practice. We get on the bus at 2:00 after 2:15 right after school, and some days we're not home until 6:00 at night. Some of the games can take 7 hours, but that's a bond that you really can't recreate anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie Peary, 251 Stonehenge Lane. We're a family at Guilford Hockey, but there's a problem with the culture of hockey. It's too expensive. This year and last year, I spent trying to get my best friend to come and help us out. We had our goalie, Gavin, who was a senior last year, who passed the torch to Sean McSweet. We had no backup goalie, no plan for this year to help us out in practice, or in case McSweet got hurt. And it took 2 years to get him to convince him to play. 2, the family is a very nice family, but money's always a problem with some families. And we brought him into our family of hockey after 2 years of trying our hardest to make sure everything was going to be okay. Over the summer and part of the fall, we had some skill sessions at Hamden, and I think there was three kids who put on hockey equipment, went to the skills, but never ended up playing. The commitment to hockey is more than just your time, it's your money. Money's important, and all 3 of them never ended up playing for us and never got to experience the family of Guilford Hockey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. That's it. Dr. Balustration team, thank you very much for the consideration. Cheers.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Come on up.
Hello, Angelo Accomando, 4 Greenwood Lane, Guilford. I just want to sort of reiterate about the cost. From my understanding, hasn't been a lot of increased expenditure for the hockey team over the course of several seasons. And last year seemed to be the first time in many years where that the funding sort of went up. And I think all the kids like to do the fundraisers, the car washes, the poinsettia. I think it's a great idea. It's a good bonding experience. It's a good way to challenge themselves to to increase funds and have money at their disposal. But I think the high school needs to do a little bit better job, and it sounds like last year it kind of started with increasing the amount of expenditure so that some of these kids that really want to play are able to play, because the cost, it's not like football, it's not like soccer. There is an extreme cost. And the other thing too is that these kids get bigger. So the $1,500 that you spent for hockey stick and skates and things like that, well, the next year they grew out of them. So there's that cost of equipment that I don't necessarily think football has. It's the cost that's passed on to the family. So, and the families do it. They do it with joy. We've been watching these guys since they were 4 years old and 5 years old. So it's done with joy. But there comes to a point where you've put in quite a bit of money, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year there's another little bit to put. And there's just some families that can't do this. So it's not that the money has to be quadrupled, but I think a good increase in the amount that's allocated, and also a thought process to doing this actually increases the amount of people that are exposed that want to join and want to participate. And, just what happened last year compared to this year, the boys were going to outdoor rinks, and they were another rink. There was another time, a later time. I mean, some of these guys are getting home, 11 o'clock at night. This year was great. They have a time slot. It's all organized. The rink is beautiful. These guys are all enthusiastic to play, the guys and the girls. And I think it's a little bit of a commitment to keep that going and think about maybe some of the costs to defer a little bit of that so that some of these families that really want to do this and can't have some help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Again, just going once. I want to give people an option. All right. So we have had public comment last night and tonight. I will note 2 of our colleagues on the board are not able to be here tonight because they have a competing commitment of an orchestra concert, I believe, at Adams. So we will certainly be sharing what we heard tonight with them. We do, I'll just say to my colleagues, we could take a moment now if any of you are interested, if there are kind of clarifying questions about the budget that we may want to try to identify now, et cetera. We could certainly take the time to do that. Otherwise, if there's a discussion that we want to start, although without 2 of our colleagues, we don't want to get too far, and also, obviously not ready to make any decisions tonight. But I just want to give anyone an opportunity. If there's a question, Mrs. Trudeau might be able to identify and answer for us, or certainly we can list them and start a list for our administration. Anybody at this time? Not at this time? Not at this time. No? Okay. So I'm going to thank the community members who participated tonight, as well as those last night. We really appreciate it. It is certainly easier for us, and we are better informed when we're making decisions and have some sense of what our community is hoping for. Again, we do have a meeting for a budget vote on February 6th, I believe I said. But again, if we decide that we want to add a meeting next week to allow the board more time to deliberate and really talk amongst ourselves, I think that at this point, I'm just going to say I think that's probably likely. We will post that meeting. That meeting won't have a public forum as part of it, but anyone is certainly welcome to come and listen to our conversation, our deliberations. And then lastly, again, I invite anyone who has not yet reached out to the board but has a comment, a question, a request for consideration, to do so. All of our emails are on the Guilford Public Schools website. So I am going to then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all right, all in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, thank you so much for coming tonight, and thank you for engaging with us as we think about the budget.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.